This past week, myself and 5 other priests of our diocese made our annual required retreat. Though we couldn't have our normal diocesan clergy retreat with all of us at a retreat house due to COVID, a few of us decided to arrange our own. It's always a great time of intense prayer, being able to connect with the other priests in our diocese, and then being able to pray alongside them. Our usual practice in our diocese has been to devote one particular evening during that week to the sacrament of reconciliation. I myself like to go to confession at least every other week, so I'm well acquainted, obviously, with the sacrament, not just being there for you, but receiving it myself. Well, a few years ago, I had one of the most awe-inspiring experiences at confession. After I had received my absolution, these words simply washed over me. Can it be that easy, Lord? Is it really that easy, the forgiveness? When I went back into the chapel, I actually got my answer. It was as though the Lord spoke directly to me. It is that easy. You are forgiven. It's that easy. As human beings, we all need to connect with others. I suppose that's why I love retreats where I am not just by myself, even during the times that we're praying together, silently. We are doing that together. We as human beings don't like to feel isolated or cut off from family, friends, or the wider community. I think that's why one of the most challenging aspects of becoming sick or disabled is the isolation that it can bring. When we are ill, when our bodies grow weak, we can't take the same initiative we used to be able to connect with other people. People can become homebound because of their particular condition or illness. This pandemic that we are in certainly has proven how absolutely isolating disease can be. It's just that this time more of us are feeling that isolation. The most isolating form of illness, though, during Jesus' time was the leprosy that we heard about in our gospel reading. For health reasons, the lepers actually had to live apart from everybody else, as it said in the gospel, outside the camp. Same thing in the first reading. We heard what happens to lepers. They were required to cry out, "Unclean, unclean," so that people would literally stay away from them. They lived apart from their families, their friends, and the community to which they belonged. They were actually poster children for those who are outcasts. So now that you have this background, isn't it more amazing then that the leper does not cry out unclean to Jesus, but instead cries out, "If you wish, you can make me clean." Think of the courage that it took for that leper to say those words, to go against convention and seek healing for himself. And then the next amazing thing occurred. Jesus actually reached out and touched the leper, and with that, he was healed. Unlike the leper, Jesus was perfectly healthy. When approached by the leper, the Lord could have done what was expected of any Jewish person. He could have turned away from him, as every other Jew would have. But Jesus stood his ground and engaged with the leper, reaching out to him, not only by word, but by action. He not only spoke to him, he actually touched him. Jesus often healed people by means of his word alone. But this man, who had suffered from extreme isolation, he really needed to be touched at that moment. Jesus did more than what was asked of him. He took an initiative as daring and risky as the lepers moved toward him. He went as far as any human being could to deliver this man from his isolation. And in doing so, Jesus not only heals his body, but he heals his soul. I can't help but wonder if that former leper had the same thoughts that I did, joyfully wondering, can it really be this easy, Lord? Can it really be this easy? And yes, for that leper, it was easy. The Lord loved him so much that he reached out to him to restore his life, to restore his dignity, and heal him. And the Lord does that for us too, you know. He does that with me every single time I go to confession. It's that easy. Brothers and sisters, that's how much he loves us. When you and I go to confession, he reaches out, takes it all away. He heals us. It's that easy. But you know what? It didn't end up being easy for Jesus himself. I think it cost him dearly. Remember that Jesus actually touches the leper. I read the gospel today in a very different way than I had in the past. It says that the leper spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. He remained outside in deserted places. I always thought it was because Jesus becomes so famous that he needed to stay away from all of the crowds. Certainly, that would be an easy reading of the gospel. But now, could there be another reason? Maybe instead, it was now he was unclean because he himself had touched that leper. The rules required him to be apart from the community because he is now unclean until he cleanses himself. He has become the leper and the outcast because he's touched a leper. That he takes the place of the rejected, and the rejected are now restored. And that's how much Jesus Christ loves you and loves me. He didn't just risk his health and life, he gave it freely in our place. We sometimes reject God due to our own sins, and then God comes right back and takes our place again, just like he did with the leper, just like he did on Calvary, just like he does in the sacrament of reconciliation, just like he will do on this altar in a very short while. For us, my friends, it is that easy. But for him, he risks everything out of love for all of us. So what does that mean for us? Well, first and foremost, God will go to any length to bring you, graciously lavish upon you, the gift of his mercy, his forgiveness, and of course, his healing strength. He wants to restore you to the greatest dignity of all. And all you have to do is ask. So this Lent, I beg you, come to the confessional. It's not just me or Father Matt or Father Charlie that will be waiting there. He is waiting for you. And yes, it will be that easy. He will restore you again. And secondly, I think this is the tougher part. Having been restored, Jesus does invite us to follow him. In doing so, as we've heard many times, we are supposed to do as he did. And so then he asks us, do you have the courage that I did? Who are the lepers and the outcasts for you in your own community? Will you reach out to the leper that is in our midst? Will you risk rejection for my sake? The Lord will ask of us. Will you be willing to take the lowest place so that another may be raised up? The very easy part is accepting Jesus' love and mercy. The hard part is this: having accepted God's free gift, will we then take the risk to share that gift with a leper that we ourselves might fear?